to another edition of Life Dimensions. Today I want to talk with you about a concept called the 4 dimensions of life. I learned this concept probably 30 years ago. I remember I was doing my undergraduate work at LSU, and I walked into a little bookstore and I found a book called I Dare You. It was a motivational book, and I took that with me, and it really helped me. It worked as a guide for my life. So if you're looking for something as a way to stay balanced in life, something to guide you, I think you'll enjoy this concept. So let's get into it. The 4 dimensions of life. So what am I talking about? Man is defined as a body, a mind, right? Some people speak of the soul. These are the dimensions of our life. And if we really want to be balanced, we need to create relationships in each of these areas. I think of, different animals in nature. If you think of a bird in flight, that's its dimension. It has a body and it's in the air. Think of a fish, it's floating in water, it's got a body, and water is its dimension. All of us as human beings really have only 4 dimensions. And you'll see what I'm getting at, and we'll bring this closer to home as we get into it. But all of us have 4 dimensions, and I'm going to put a little smiley face in here. And the dimensions are pretty obvious, right? We have a body, so we'll call this the physical dimension. We also have a mind, right? So we'll call that the mental dimension. Our thoughts, our feelings, our will. We're also social creatures. Social creatures. In other words, from the beginning of time, we've always created families, had children. Something very human about that. That's what we do as human beings. And we're also spiritual. There's something about you and I that's undefinable. If I ask you who you are, you really can't really say other than, well, I'm American, I'm I don't know, a locksmith, maybe you're a comedian, whatever you are, but it's the roles you play. But the real you is undefinable. It's invisible. And that's the spiritual part of us. So we have these 4 dimensions. And what I want you to understand is that if you want to live a vibrant life, you need to learn to create relationships in each of these areas. Think of them as the nutrients, that sustain us in life. A plant needs water, it needs oxygen, it needs sunshine. As human beings, we need connections in all these areas. We really are very interdependent on these dimensions. Now, to make this more real to you, I'm going to go through each dimension and just talk a little bit about it. And I'm going to use stereotypes, so don't take me in the wrong way. I just want to show you an extreme example so that you can really get what I'm talking about. So let's talk about the physical dimension. Some people will just focus on the physical. What normally happens in life is that we tend to focus on 1 or 2 of these dimensions. And what we really need to do is develop each one of them. But let's look at someone that just focuses on the physical. I work out a lot, and I go to the gym, and I know there are guys there that their arms are bigger than my legs. They really just focus on the physical. They're there sometimes 2 to 4 hours. Again, they're really focused on the physical. Social, you might call them gym lizards. I've heard that term about people that are at the gym. They spend a lot of time there. That's where they socialize. Spiritually, they're probably not reading the Bible or some other spiritual book. They're looking at or reading books on how to build bigger biceps, right? And then again, mentally, they're not really focused so much on trying to deal with their mind or improve their thinking other than to help themselves physically. let's look at somebody who is just focused on the mental. You know, every school had a bookworm, right? He never focused on the physical. He's a little skinny guy, that's the stereotype. Socially, he doesn't have a girlfriend. And spiritually, again, he's not studying anything like the Bible or something like that. He is focused on maybe, today it might be computers or automobiles or something that is not spiritual. So they're just focused on the mental. This is where they live their life. And then we have folks over here who go out a lot at the detriment of their body, their mind, and their spirit. For them, life is very hedonistic. It's about enjoying it. And again, there's nothing wrong with any of these, except that we need to do them in balance. The last one, even spiritually, you know, we can get out of balance. Think of some of the, way back, there was the Davidian cult, right? The Jim Jones massacre, I think that was in the 70s, where people actually drank Kool-Aid and committed suicide. They focused so much on the spiritual that, again, it actually killed them. So the point is, we want to stay balanced in life, and we want to create relationships in each of these areas. So let's think of, and just to make this more real, what I want to show you is, let's say you lose one of these dimensions. Maybe you have a mental illness. I've worked with people with severe mental illness, schizophrenia, and severe bipolar disorders. Their mind is really broken. They've lost this dimension, all right? And all of us are on a continuum somewhere with that, no matter what. And then let's talk about, look, if we lost the physical. As we get older, that's a really important thing, to take care of ourselves and be healthy. But my best example of that is, I never forgot, I worked with this Spanish kid. He was about 24. And he was a gifted mechanic. And he loved to create these low-rider cars, the kind you pump up and all. Well, at 24, he had a stroke. And he came to me because he was depressed, because often after a physical illness, people will get depressed. I helped him with his depression, but he was never able to work on cars again. He had lost that ability using his hands and all like he used to. And then we have people over here who become very depressed. You know, clinical depression, some people, severe depression, they won't get out of the bed to use the restroom. It's very severe. A good example of this also, people in prison, they put them in solitary confinement because they know that will break them. Socially, we need other people in our lives. And then, of course, many people have no spirituality today. And you know, you can get by with that for a while, but for me, I've understood from working with people that the real solution to life is a spiritual one. So most of my work with people is holistic, body, mind, and spirit. So you can see we need all four, but we need them in balance. So what I want to do now is just show you how to apply this to your life. And all I'm going to do is draw a graph here. And I'm going to put 10s here. In other words, if you're a 10 on that, you're doing really well. But I want you to think about yourself. Physically, do you eat right? Do you exercise? Do you really try to learn about health? I think today, more than ever, you really need to take control of your own health. How many people I work with that go to the doctors in our healthcare system that really are just treating symptoms? They're not really looking at the causes. So you really need to get control of that and work on your own health. So give yourself a number. You could be a 5 here. Again, it's fairly subjective. I don't know where you are. Maybe you're a 10. Maybe you really study health a lot and really enjoy it, you know. And then socially, some people don't go anywhere. They just stay home. Particularly people who are depressed, they isolate and withdraw, which makes them more depressed because people tend to leave you alone if you tend to withdraw from them. But think about it. Do you have an active social life? Do you go places? Or you just, again, there's a balance to that. I'm not saying you have to always be going out, but you need to be happy with where you are in that dimension. So again, I'll just put a 7 here. I don't know. Again, I'm asking you to do this to yourself. And spiritually, do you pray? Do you go to church? I'm not necessarily talking about religion when I talk about spirituality. I'm really talking about finding a connection, finding meaning in life. If you feel like you lack meaning, you're not going to be happy. We have to have purpose in life. So many elderly people I work with who are retired, one of the things I try to get them to do is do volunteer work so that they can find something to do again. They're just sitting around. It's like they've been put on the shelf, and once they start doing something meaningful, they begin to live a more happier life, So again, wherever you are in there, and then mentally, we'll just draw it out like that. I mean, do you work on yourself? Do you try to deal with negative thinking, worry, that inner critic that sometimes many people have? I've heard it said, psychologists say, and again, I don't know how to validate this, but we have about 60,000 thoughts a day, and most of them are negative. All we have to do is change our thinking just a little, and we can change our lives. I really believe that. So again, you can see I just drew this as a square, but this person could, that's there where they are in these dimensions. So I'm challenging you, set goals in each of these areas. It's a real easy concept to use. Think of physical, mental, spiritually, and social. When I say mental, I'm also talking about the emotional. So think of it. Set a goal. Just read a book. I don't know. I mean, you could start going to the gym. I mean, we can go on and on. That's a whole nother thing that I often do individually with people to figure out what they want to do. Because not everything is right for each individual. So there you go. That's the 4 dimensions of life. And I hope you enjoyed it. And that'll be it for today. Thank you.